I try to tell cats all the time, don't go into doing music looking for a deal. Do the music. The deal will find you. If I have a loop or a part of the sample that I want, I piece it together in my mind like a puzzle. All starts when you're sampling. It all starts and ends when you do this. The internet has made the fan level go down. Everybody's a critic. I make life music, man. I don't make music just for the club or make music just for reading. I make music for life. And I also make music that producers and people that don't understand production can understand. You have some producers that make beats just for producers. Ooh, I chopped this sample and ooh. So such and such can be wild, or another producer can be wild. That's just great. And then you have some producers that make music just for, to make somebody dance, or the beat is so stripped down that it's just for the people can understand, or the people can, a person can sit down like, I can make a beat like that. I try to stay in the middle. To make music that your average cat can't make, but a producer can still respect. Sometimes people make beats and don't understand body motion means a lot, especially when it comes to the region you're making the beat for. So if I'm thinking of classic West Coast, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking of all the like different, foot movements and all of that stuff. And I also knew that Ludacris used this for Splash Waterfalls, the same sample. So now I'm thinking, okay, I have to flip it another way. So I'm fighting against 3 or 4 different thought processes. The first it was just soul, but now we start talking about artists from different genres, and it throws people off when you say you're a hip hop producer and you start talking about artists from different, Tom Scott. What do you know about Tom Scott? Well, I know about, Tom Scott. The day I found that, what am I thinking about? It's a high, man, that I try to chase. Every time, I'm going for that high, There's a feeling in your chest that I can't explain it, but I'm trying to chase that every time. Sometimes I feel like I've hit it. Sometimes it may hit somebody else. I guess I'm chasing the same feeling that I got when I heard Electric Relaxation, or when I heard They Reminisce Over You, or when I heard Madism, or when I heard Who Got the Props, or The Blast. I'm chasing the same feeling, like, what in the world is this? Like, that's why I try to chase when I make beats. And it's just, it's repetition. It's like shooting jumpers. I mean, you shoot 1,000 jumpers a day. Some jump shooters shoot 1,000 jumpers a day. It's the same thing with beats. You got to make beats every day. If you can, make beats every day so it becomes like breathing to you. You know what I'm saying? Some beats you take 10 minutes to make. Some of my bangers I made in 5 minutes, But that's what it is when it comes to the beat making. It's definitely like breathing. It's definitely a practice over and over and over and over. It's the foundation for all of this, making beats. I think that the top of our family tree is Marley Marl. For everybody who puts a sample in a beat machine, whether it be drums or whatnot, and move that sample around on pads, that is 100% Marley Marl. Everything goes to him for that. Now, outside of that, once it leaves Marley Marl, then it goes out in tentacles, right? And then now you get into the chord progression, euphoric, jazz, soul family tree. That starts with Q-Tip.
Yeah.
And then under that is okay, do you take the DJ Premier route, or do you take the Pete Rock route, or do you take the Beat Miners route, or do you take the Diamond D route?
Right.
Me, or the Dr. Dre route?
Right.
Me, I'm more Pete and Preem.
Yeah. Right.
I've had to choose the two.
Right. Ali.
Anything, and Ali.
Right.
Those are the 3 that I am a part of that. And from an R&B, and taking all of that and putting it on my R&B side of things, the late great Chucky Thompson,
that's where I fall. But then even from Chucky Thompson is Tony Dofat, there's so many people around that time that I still go back to and listen to the records. And of course Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who we all bow down to. But it's just, you know, in hip hop terms, is DJ Premier and Pete Rock all day long, yeah. A lot of times producers listen to the samples and they say, that's a great sample, but he didn't do it right. It's just like fashion. And maybe a shirt on this side, the jacket's over here, but it takes a mind to put all those together. It's the same thing with records. It's like, if you know how to dress this up, man, just don't wear it. I just understand that soul music is soul music. Rap music is rap music, where you sell 10,000 or 500,000. I don't let the album sales dictate who I work with. If you're dope, you're dope. And some people are dope and don't have the means to understand and let everybody else hear that they're dope because they don't have the means and the money to get their stuff out there, you know. And so no matter what, in 2005 I worked with Beyonce and MOP in the same year. That's what I want to be. And that's why I got, you know, Premier did the same thing. Dr. Dre did the same thing. Pete Rock did the same thing. So if I come from that family tree of producers, then that's what I wanted to be. Samples and sounds, that's what separates one producer to the next, how they hear the record. There's nothing technically you can do to change that aspect. That is a divine moment when you listen to a sample and then take it and turn it into something else. Or turn it into something that sounds like you, because I'm still believing sticking to my sound regardless of what. I think when people run away from the sound, then other people come and pick it up, and then you're like, damn. First it was Cool Edit and Hammer. Archaic. Then it was Cool Edit and Beatbox. And then it became Cool Edit and Fruity Loops. And I wasn't trying to prove a point by, I'm gonna make beats on a computer and show the world. Like, I was just trying to make music. Like, I was trying to make music the best I possibly could. Trying to make some jams, man. It goes back to the whole thing when not overthinking, you know. I was at Jazzy Jeff's house one time, and I had my laptop up, and he had keyboards and beat machines and all on the wall, and I kicked out like 13 beats one day. He said, man, Knife, I came in here, man, with this little Hewlett-Packard laptop and banging out 13 beats. I'm here looking like Starship Enterprise, and I ain't got one out today. So that just told me that it's not the machine, it's the man behind the machine. You know, people think sampling is stealing, that it's lazy, that, you know, why can't you play an instrument? I mean, we look at it like, just like you would see a painting in the Louvre. If it's a collage and it's taking pieces of magazines from all across the world, making one big collage is hanging in the Louvre, why is that not sampling, right? Us taking records and turning them into something else, musically turning them into something else, or even using records that wasn't even hits, or using people that wasn't even popular, right? Because without us, a lot of these artists are forgotten about. They just vanished from time. But a lot of my listeners, younger listeners, say, well, man, I never heard of this artist. I never heard of this artist until you sample them first. So it's our way of creating a bridge of a newer generation to an older generation. Because if you sit down and just play a record for a kid, they're not going to listen to it. Just not. Because you're the old person playing a record that you love so much for a kid. They're like, yeah, this is old music. That's how they're gonna see it. But if I take it and sample it, put some drums over it, put a rapper over it, and they go to YouTube and look it up and find out that I use this artist and that artist, then that just starts a whole wormhole of, well, who is this artist? Where did it come from? It's just a new way of introducing things. That's what sampling is. When you say producer to people, people don't understand what that means. Because the producer aspect when it comes to film, when it comes to other genres of music, and when it comes to hip hop are three different You know, sometimes in film, producers are overseers. They see, okay, you go here, you do this. And that. When it comes to other forms of music, it's like, okay, I might have wrote it. Some people might have came in and played it, but I wrote it. And when it comes to hip hop, it's so hands-on. It's just me. I'm the producer. I made the beat. I told the rhymer how to say it this way. So I think it's the fact that most producers are their role is not really understood by the public. Putting two discs on two different plates, putting them beside each other and playing them simultaneously is a hip hop creation. This is not, a disc jockey in the 50s. They played records, but putting the DJ disc jockey, two turntables at one time, and listening to records over here and over here, has changed the scope of everything. So people don't like to think they don't like to think that a turntable is an instrument, and it is. So it's taking the idea and placing it into a hip hop pantheon and saying this is a hip hop invention is kind of like people just don't even think of it that way. Just think of a person's playing music. The snare, I got about 10, 15 snares, man. Like it's it's become the thing with me. I ain't changed his drums, this, that. And then when I started to change them, then you got people to say, man, I miss the old knife. As much as I try to run away from it, man, it's like, that's what the people want, man, But I'm glad the people want that from me, It's not like a sound that I'm making that some would say, oh, he's selling out. They want the boom bap sound from me, which is incredible to say. To first understand the craft of hip hop, you understand how the craft of hip hop was built and the shoulders it was built upon. It was built upon a large part of the civil rights movement. A lot of it is built on acts that was passed from the 1924 Immigration Act to the 1965 Immigration Act, like how it changed the whole aspect of what the Bronx looked like, the demographic makeup of the Bronx. How I went from there to, okay, how can we get these different cultures to talk to each other? Let's do it through music. Whether it happened, whether this was a grand design or whether it was happenstance, right? Like, how can we get this particular generation to even give an iota about the civil rights era? How did Chuck D make me appreciate who Fred Hampton was? How? An adult couldn't have told me who he was, but when Chuck said it, on It Takes a Nation of Millions, Carter G. Woodson and all these people that I'd never heard of in school, it made me care. It made me want to go back. But somebody cool was saying it. Somebody cool to me was saying it. And just that aspect of, people think that hip hop is just, okay, we're just gonna get in and talk about turntables. This is just a pills in the applesauce way of getting this particular generation to appreciate where they come from through the music that they love. Like, what better way is that? I wanted to be a history teacher. That's what I went to Central for. I wanted to be a history teacher. I was a history major. I felt like it was a void, in academia when it came to just a study of the culture. I think that's the biggest problem with hip hop. We don't have a medium where we can really talk about the culture like it's supposed to be talked about. I taught 3 years at North Carolina Central. I taught from 1968 to 1997, because that's from the assassination of Martin Luther King to the assassination of Notorious B.I.G. And I did that because a lot of schools, they don't even talk about Black history between that time. If we want our kids to pay attention to it, why don't we tie it to music? Which throughout that course of time, music has shaped this generation, especially the hip hop generation. So another gentleman by the name of Dr. Mark Anthony Neal, who actually wrote the book we were using in the class at Central called That's the Joint, came to me and said, look, man, why don't you come over in Duke University, and let's do something. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so we went to Duke and we taught a class called Sampling Soul. And that was a class where we just took a sample of every piece of the Black music diaspora, right? Sampling Michael Jackson, talking about Michael Jackson for 3 hours, and sampling Illmatic, where we had 20,000 unique viewers on Ustream, sampling Geography, where I talked about Gambling Huff, Solar Records, Motown, and Stax. The difference, how, in the Minneapolis sound, how it differed when it comes to geography. You would think something that was started by us, not to say that we're the only people that's in it, but something that came out of our culture, something that came out of the civil rights movement in the 60s, something that came from James Brown, we will be more intrigued to learn about it, the true essence of it. But black schools tend to push that away. They don't want to be attached to it because of what they see on television. They don't want to be attached to it. It's the same thing that happened to jazz, the same exact thing. We tended to, in the 60s and 50s, 60s, 40s, 30s, we wanted to push that away. That was the devil's music. We didn't want to be bothered with it, blah, blah. It was this worldwide phenomenon, and you know how jazz is now. I think a lot of us have the idea, since I'm black, I don't need to know. I'm already black. Why I need to know is called knowledge itself, knowing where you come from, knowing where you say some of the words that you say, know where they came from. Some people don't think that's important. And that was the biggest thing, the battle at a black school. It's like, you don't want to learn about your own culture, but you go to this predominantly white school and you got a lot of white kids that want to know. They're intrigued to know, as well as their own. So it's kind of, that was the biggest difference between the two.